That evening, after finishing dinner, I felt hot sweat soaking my back. I decided to take a shower to cool down. The bathroom was small, but the comfortable warm water flowing over my skin felt gentle and pleasant. After finishing my shower, I chose a soft beige dress that I usually wore at home, a V-neck dress with a long zipper in the back. I went into the bedroom to put it on. But when I pulled up the zipper, I found that it was stuck in the middle. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't pull it up at first. I glanced around in confusion, planning to call my husband for assistance. However, as I entered the living room, I noticed the dim light illuminating only my father-in-law, who was seated in a chair. Hearing my footsteps, he looked up, a hint of surprise in his eyes. "Where's your husband, Dad?" I inquired, my voice tinged with hesitation. Caleb had just stepped out, likely to pick up a few items. Was there something off about his tone? It remained steady and calm. I bit my lip in this situation, there was no other choice. I spoke awkwardly. My skirt. The zipper is stuck. Could you assist me with my hearing?" He placed his teacup on the table, stood up, and approached me. As he positioned himself directly behind me, I sensed the closeness between us, his breath lightly brushed against the back of my neck, sending a shiver of nervousness through me. He reached for the zipper, a frown crossing his face as he noticed it was caught in the fabric. "It seems to be stuck," he murmured, his hand beginning to tug at it. Suddenly, I heard a small click, and everything unfolded in an instant. The zipper slid down forcefully, and the smooth silk skirt cascaded to my feet. I stood motionless, as if time had halted. A breeze from the window swept in, making my skin tingle. "Hello everyone. I am Evelyn, 28 years old. I have been married to Caleb for 3 years. Our married life appears flawless at first glance, a lovely home, a secure job, and a sound financial standing. Caleb is a devoted family man, always showing his love for me. I take pride in my flourishing career, where I can showcase my skills and find fulfillment in my daily tasks. We share our home with my father-in-law, Mr. Gregory, a strong and composed man in his late 60s, whom I deeply respect. He not only fulfills the role of a father in our family but also acts as a mediator during our disagreements. Our conflicts primarily center around the topic of having children. Caleb dreams of a complete family filled with the laughter of kids, while I feel unprepared and wish to concentrate on my career for a while longer, pursuing my personal aspirations before embracing motherhood. This difference in our desires has led to ongoing discussions. Yet those discussions have never lessened our love for one another. Caleb patiently seeks to persuade me, and I strive to articulate my feelings after each conversation. My father-in-law steps in with gentle advice, always reminding us that family is rooted in understanding one another. All problems have a solution. Gradually, due to his influence, Caleb and I developed an understanding of how to truly listen and yield to one another. I once believed our lives would continue in that harmonious manner. But one evening, everything shifted dramatically. That day unfolded with the same hustle and bustle as any other. In the morning, I woke up earlier than usual to prepare breakfast for the whole family. Caleb liked a simple breakfast, usually a slice of toast and a cup of black coffee. I also rewarded myself with a glass of warm milk to start the day. My father-in-law, Mr. Gregory, still kept the habit of reading the newspaper while sipping a cup of tea every morning. The air in the house is always peaceful, warm, and filled with pleasant aromas from the kitchen after breakfast. I quickly got ready to go to work. Although my office job was not too stressful, It required a high level of concentration. I put on a white shirt and elegant trousers and light high heels that made me more confident. On the way to the company, I stopped by a nearby coffee shop to buy another cup of coffee as a way to reward myself before a long day at the office. That day was busier than usual. The consecutive meetings left me with almost no time to rest. I tried to handle each email and each report and complete the tasks on time. However, I always kept an optimistic attitude because I knew that this job was not only a responsibility but also my passion. When the clock struck 5 p.m., I gathered my documents and departed. The moment I stepped out of the company, the gentle afternoon sunlight enveloped me, offering a sense of comfort after a long, stressful day at work. I decided to stop by the nearby supermarket to pick up some fresh ingredients, as I wanted to prepare a more delightful dinner than usual. It had been far too long since the entire family had the chance to get together and share a meal at a relaxed pace. Upon arriving home, I hurried to the kitchen, where Caleb had just returned. He greeted me with a smile and joined me in setting the table. Hot chicken soup, a plate of grilled salmon, and a portion of fragrant stir-fried vegetables were elegantly arranged on the table as my father-in-law emerged from the study. He smiled with satisfaction as he surveyed the dinner we had gathered for, engaging in lively conversation and laughter throughout the meal, even amidst some minor disagreements about having children. Family meals hold a special place in my heart, and I cherished those moments. Feeling a bit stuffed after the meal, I made my way to the bathroom. The cool water washed away the tension in my heart. After the shower, I slipped into my favorite cream-colored silk dress, the one with the zipper in the back. As I stood before the mirror, ready to zip it up, I found the zipper stuck halfway. I fumbled with it, but despite my efforts, it remained stubbornly unzipped. I stepped into the living room, ready to seek Caleb's assistance, only to find the space devoid of anyone. I turned and shouted, "Caleb, where are you?" My father-in-law remained silent. The person seated in the chair, engrossed in a book, glanced up as Caleb stepped outside for a moment. "Hello there." After a moment of uncertainty, I finally admitted, My dress zipper is stuck. I am unable to do that. Lift it up. Could you assist me?" He set the book aside and rose to his feet. "Let me see," he said, stepping closer, his gaze steady and composed. I turned my head slightly, bowing it to grant him easier access to the zipper. His hand, firm and strong, brushed against the fabric. "It seems to be stuck," he remarked, attempting to pull it up. But as he exerted pressure, the zipper finally gave way. With a gentle swish, the delicate dress slipped away, leaving me standing there, frozen in place. As confusion enveloped us both, I stood there, frozen, unsure of how to respond. He quickly averted his gaze, his voice heavy with remorse. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." In a rush, I gathered the dress with my hands, quivering as I drew it around myself. "It's okay, Dad," I mumbled, my eyes fixed on the ground, unable to meet his gaze. He took a few steps back, striving to maintain his composure. "Fix it yourself. Let Caleb come back and ask him for help." With that, he turned and left quickly, leaving me standing alone. The atmosphere felt stifling and uncomfortable, my heart pounding with a mix of embarrassment and confusion. That evening, I struggled to concentrate every time I recalled Mr. John's apologetic gaze. A weight settled heavier on my chest. I couldn't decipher his thoughts, and that uncertainty only deepened my worry about Caleb. He arrived home late, seemingly oblivious to the events that had transpired. With a smile on his face, He engaged in cheerful conversation, completely unaware of my unease. I attempted to maintain a facade of normalcy, but it was a struggle I couldn't overcome. I couldn't shake off the confusion in the days following that incident. It was as if Mr. JN had transformed. He no longer engaged with me as he once did, always avoiding my gaze whenever our paths crossed in the house. This shift left me feeling uneasy. Yet I struggled to find a way to bridge the growing awkwardness. There were moments when I would catch him looking at me, his eyes searching for something. And in those instances, I would quickly avert my gaze, attempting to maintain my composure while my heart raced with uncertainty. I found myself pondering his thoughts, which only deepened my worry. I reassured myself that this too would pass. That time would mend these unseen fractures. But I was mistaken. By morning, fatigue had settled in, and my throat ached. My head spun as I took my temperature, confirming a slight fever. Caleb had left for work early, and I chose to take a day off to rest. My father-in-law remained at home, absorbed in his study, lost in books and newspapers, or preoccupied with his own pursuits. I lay in bed for what felt like an eternity, overwhelmed by fatigue, unable to do anything but attempt to sleep. However, the heat of the room drove me to seek relief outside. I made my way to the living room in search of some cool air. Dressed in my simple pajamas, my hair hung loosely, and my face was pale from fever as I entered the living room. There sat Mr. Gregory in the chair, his gaze fixed intently on his phone screen. I greeted him softly, but he offered no reply, merely lifting his head to meet my eyes. There was something different in his gaze. Now, those once calm eyes are no longer the same. "You're not feeling well, are you?" he asked, his voice deeper than usual. "Yes. I have a little fever, so I'm taking the day off," I replied, striving to maintain a normal demeanor. He didn't say anything further, just nodded. Yet his gaze remained locked on me, as if he were searching for something in my appearance. That feeling left me inexplicably uneasy. I was on the verge of stepping outside to escape the tension when I heard him call. "Evelyn. Come here, I have something to tell you." I halted, my heart gripped by an unfamiliar sensation. Mr. JN rose, his gaze unwavering and filled with resolve, locking onto mine as the atmosphere in the room thickened. I could feel my heart pounding and my palms sweating. "Evelyn. You are so beautiful," he said. His voice was low, reverberating in the silence. I froze in place, feeling as if my legs had lost all strength. My whole body was cold. Each word he uttered felt like a knife cutting into my heart. "Dad. What are you talking about?" I asked, trembling, my voice choked. But he did not respond right away. He moved closer with each step, making me feel as though the space around me was closing in. His eyes locked onto mine, unwavering for even a moment. "Evelyn," he said, his voice gentle yet heavy with urgency. "Can you let me see you again?" I stood there, disbelief washing over me. My eyes widened as I searched his face for any hint of a joke. But there was none to be found. His gaze was so serious that it left me utterly speechless. I nearly shouted, struggling to maintain my composure. "How could you say such things? Do you not feel a sense of sympathy for Caleb?" He paused, confusion etched on his face. Yet his gaze remained fixed on me. "Evelyn. I don't know what happened to me," he admitted. His voice was soft, almost pleading. "Since that day, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you." I stepped back, trying to maintain my distance from my father-in-law. "What you said is truly hurtful. You are damaging the relationships within this family." I am your daughter-in-law. I know, he raised his voice, but then quickly softened it. Still, this feeling is overwhelming. Dad. I shouted, my voice trembling, my eyes brimming with tears. I can't bear to hear this any longer. I don't understand how you could say such things. I can't believe it. Mr. John. He stood still, his gaze fixed on the floor as if battling an unseen force within. The air in the room felt heavy and suffocating. After a long moment, he sighed, his shoulders slumping, his voice soft yet trembling. Evelyn. I don't know why things turned out like this. I apologize. Yet, I can no longer deceive myself. I stood there, engulfed in confusion and panic, which surged like waves, while my legs felt as though they were anchored, immobilized. He moved nearer, each step deliberate and heavy with tension. His gaze locked onto mine, brimming with turmoil and an indescribable sorrow. I stepped back, but the small table behind me obstructed my escape, trapping me in place. I know this is wrong, he said, his voice softer yet unmistakably resolute. But this feeling truly frightens me. I don't want to cause you any pain. Yet I find myself unable to stop thinking about you. Since that day, my heart has been pounding so fiercely. It feels as if it might burst. Chad. Do you understand what you're expressing? This is not feasible for us. This is incorrect. It's going to ruin everything. I screamed, my voice cracking with emotion. He stopped in front of me, his eyes brimming with pain. I understand. Evelyn, I understand. All of that. Yet I understand that returning is not an option. You sense it as well, don't you? His question pierced my thoughts like a knife, and I shook my head in denial. Yet my body betrayed me. My eyes were not just pleading, they radiated a sense of helplessness and vulnerability. In that moment, everything around me faded, the room blurred, and silence enveloped us. As he stepped closer, the space between us vanished, and I found myself rooted in place. All the invisible barriers that once separated us dissolved in an instant, leaving only the aftermath of what had transpired. I sat on the chair, my hands trembling uncontrollably, my heart still pounding. But now the sensation had shifted from conflict to a profound fear. I couldn't comprehend what had just transpired. Mr. JN stood before me, his eyes filled with shock. Evelyn, he began, but his voice was choked. No. I interrupted, my voice quivering. Don't say anything more. I rose, feeling as though my legs had lost all strength. Yet I forced myself to walk quickly toward the door. As my hand the doorknob, he spoke again, his voice heavy with pain. Evelyn. I'm sorry. I sincerely apologize. I chose not to look back, I simply slipped away in silence. The room was heavy with silence as tears streamed down my cheeks, a torrent of guilt and confusion overwhelming me. I felt utterly lost, unsure of how to confront myself, Caleb, or Gregory after the events of that night. Lying in bed, sleep eluded me, and my mind was plagued by haunting images, feelings, and words. I couldn't help but wonder how things had spiraled so far out of control and how we could possibly face reality from this point onward. Answers eluded me, and perhaps they eluded Gregory as well in the days that followed. After that, I existed in a state of unending anguish. The idea of revealing everything to Caleb haunted me. Yet each time I considered it, a wave of helplessness washed over me. I understood that if Caleb learned the truth, the bond he shared with my father would be irrevocably altered. That precious father-son connection shattered beyond repair. I struggled to contain my turmoil, burying it deep within, stifling the anguish and remorse. Yet that only intensified my sense of suffocation. I realized that my only option was to leave this place. It was the only way to prevent things from spiraling further and to protect this family from unraveling. I began to formulate plans, all while maintaining a smile on my face, pretending that everything was perfectly fine. I didn't want Caleb to sense that something was amiss before I found the courage to express my thoughts. Each day, I prepared breakfast, tidied up the house, and wore a facade of normalcy. But deep down, my resolve was firm. One evening, after dinner, as the family gathered in the living room, I waited for the right moment to speak to Caleb. I took a deep breath and said, gently. I aimed to maintain a soothing tone as I prepared to share my thoughts. Caleb glanced up at me, his expression laced with worry. What's wrong? Is something the matter? I inhaled deeply, seeking to steady my nerves. I believe it's time for us to relocate. A fresh beginning awaits us in a new place. Caleb froze, his eyebrows knitted together in thought. Move. What has prompted this sudden desire to pursue that? We've been managing quite well. Is there an issue? I shook my head, attempting to muster a smile. Reassuringly. It's nothing, I just wanted us to have some space. I think it's time to leave. Caleb to put his hand on my shoulder. His voice was serious. Evelyn. I know something. It's not right, there's no need to conceal it from me. Share what's troubling you. Just as I was about to respond, JN descended the stairs, having overheard the entire exchange. Evelyn is correct, Gregory said, his tone steady yet soft. Caleb, I believe you and Evelyn should consider moving out for a while. There's a chance to create your own futures. I don't wish to hold you both here indefinitely. Caleb gazed at him, surprise evident in his eyes. But Dad, I don't want to go. I believe we can continue to share our lives together. Mr. John smiled and patted Caleb on the shoulder. You don't need to worry about me, I'm fine, he said reassuringly. You and Evelyn ought to prioritize what truly benefits your future. Caleb remained quiet for an extended period. His eyes gradually softened. And at last, he nodded. If you say so, Dad. I agree. But I will come. I would visit you frequently. Yet I remained silent, merely lowering my gaze, feeling a mixture of sadness and relief. I knew why Mr. Gregory helped me. This was his way of making amends, of keeping this family from falling apart when night fell. I stood in my room looking out the window with an empty feeling. I knew that leaving was the right thing to do. But the pain and guilt would follow me wherever I went. My story left a profound lesson. Every mistake starts with a small boundary being broken. Sometimes just a moment of carelessness, a moment of weakness, can lead to unpredictable consequences. None of us are perfect. But it is the recognition of mistakes, facing them and correcting them, that is important. Always cherish the important relationships around you. Especially family. Family is not only a shelter but also a responsibility to preserve. One wrong action can destroy everything we have built over the years, so stay alert. Keep your limits. And don't let your emotions get the best of you. For those who are in a similar situation, my advice is to choose the action that causes the least harm to everyone. Sometimes leaving is not an escape, but the best way to protect the people you love is earned. So let go. Because this not only frees you but also helps you keep the good values that you want to protect. I left that house carrying with me sadness and profound lessons. Life unfolds as a lengthy journey. And I promise myself to never stray from my path again. This is where my narrative concludes. The experience served as the most significant lesson of my life, reinforcing the importance of family and the weight of responsibility. I appreciate your attention. And I trust that this narrative will guide you in steering clear of comparable errors.